Welcome to another edition of Consumer Protection and You with Ryan Lippe. Today, we're going to be looking at scams involving home improvement and home repair. So stay tuned. Welcome back to another edition of Consumer Protection and You with Ryan Lippe. Ryan Lippe is a consumer educator with the State of Ohio Attorney General's Office, Dave Yost. And today we're going to be looking at, in the springtime, different scams that can be used when home repairs or home improvements can occur. Ryan, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, it's that time of the year when we have a lot of individuals come banging on our door wanting to help us beautify our houses.
Definitely the time is ripe for scammers to be going door to door. A lot of times they'll do it after there's been a rainstorm or tornadoes in the area. They'll come by wanting to do some home repairs. They'll say they're going to replace roofing shingles, or they'll trim trees, things like that. Now, you got to watch out for the folks going door to door, because think about it. They're not going by word of mouth. They're not going by any advertisements that they've aired. They're just going in cold, trying to talk you into giving them money to do work that you may or may not need. So buyer beware when it comes to the home improvement and home repair folks going door to door. Sometimes their story may check out, but a lot of times they will tell you that they have some material left over from a job down the street, and they'll do it for a cut rate as long as you let them start work right away. That's a bad idea. First of all, you need to give them notice that you're entitled to a 3-day right to cancel. That's under state law. You're given a 3-day cooling off period whenever somebody goes door to door to sell you a product or service. And number two, you haven't checked out them with the Better Business Bureau or with the Ohio Attorney General's office to see whether they are legitimate, whether they have been sued by our office, whether they have gotten any consumer complaints. You don't know any of that when somebody just sticks a foot in your door saying they want to do business with you and trim trees or replace roofing shingles. So let's stop for a second and go to part of our website at ohioattorneygeneral.gov that talks about all types of home improvement contracts and gives advice for folks wanting to get that home repair job completed. Now you'll see some information from ohioattorneygeneral.gov on the screen. This is where we have lots and lots of tips involving home improvement and home repair jobs and what you need to do to prepare for someone to come into your home or going outside to do any kind of work around your home or condominium. We do have an article in the April 2022 edition of Consumer Advocate that's available at ohioattorneygeneral.gov or at ohioprotects.org. And that'll give you lots of context and some details on what we're talking about here today. But in a different part of the website, we do have consumer tips on home improvement. I wanted to go through some of these to make sure that you're aware that you do have rights and what questions you need to ask folks if they do go door to door or if you are approaching someone that wants to do home improvement work for you. First of all, let's go down to the second bullet point. We'll start there. You want to make sure that before signing a home improvement contract, you want to make sure that you've checked with local officials to see if permits are required for the project. A lot of times, if it's a legitimate home repair or home improvement company, they'll already know your local area's requirements, but sometimes they do need to get permits for the project. They may also need to be registered with the municipality. Again, it depends on what local area you're from, but they may be required to get a license or certification. Next tip is the contractor is giving you references. Make sure that you ask for references and referrals to jobs they've done successfully, and then follow up and call the homeowners that have had the job done to make sure that they're satisfied with the work that the contractor has done before. If you're not satisfied that they've done good work in the past, what makes you think they're going to do good work for you? Make sure that the contractor has shown you proof of licenses, insurance, and bonding. Now, again, state law doesn't require home improvement contractors to be licensed. But as I mentioned, many cities and municipalities do require that type of license. Make sure you check with the Better Business Bureau and the Ohio Attorney General's office to see if there are any complaints on file against the company. And now is also a good time to mention that the Ohio Attorney General's office also has a wonderful database of lawsuits that we've filed against companies, including plenty of home repair and home improvement contractors. So check with the Better Business Bureau, check with the Ohio Attorney General's office to see whether we've sued the companies or the individuals, as well as whether we've got individual consumer complaints about the company you're about to do business with. Next bullet point is make sure you've received at least 3 written estimates from 3 different contractors. You don't want to go into or rush into a home improvement job. And that's one of the reasons why the law requires them to give you a 3-day right to cancel. They should not be starting any work unless it's some type of emergency. They should not be starting any work unless and until they have given you a 3-day right to cancel. So they should be waiting a few days, giving you time to gather other estimates before they start doing the work. That is what the law requires. Certainly you want to ask for any warranties in writing on materials they're going to be using, especially if they've purchased them at a home improvement store, or if they're the company that produces the product. If it's siding, windows, roofing materials, HVAC equipment, make sure you get copies in writing of whatever the manufacturer's warranty is, along with whatever warranty comes through the contractor in terms of labor. And certainly after the job's been completed, get an itemized receipt for the work purchased. Keep the old parts in case you need them later to prove that a particular item did not need to be replaced. I've seen advertisements where contractors sort of accuse each other of doing work that doesn't need to be done in the home. So be diligent about making sure that whatever needs to be done is in agreement with what everybody else thinks needs to be done when you get your 3 estimates.
Sometimes when we get those estimates, for instance, roofing a house, a normal size house can be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. Sure. And someone comes along and says, well, I can do that for $2,000 plus material costs of $1,000. I think most of us would jump at that chance.
You might jump at the chance, but remember the old adage that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Now, if they think they can do it for that cut rate, you ask yourself, why are they able to do that? Are they desperate for business, which is one thing, or are they going to use lesser materials? Are they going to use something of not good quality? Are they going to do a shoddy job? Are they going to subcontract it out to folks you haven't met yet or haven't been able to vet because you don't know who they are? So there are some good reasons why you should paint a skeptical brush stroke for folks that claim to be doing a job for significantly less than what others are charging. I'm not saying to go with the top estimate and make sure you spend as much money as possible, not by any means. But if something sounds too good to be true, if something sounds fishy, it might be. So you want to really check out everybody and their reputation before you let them on your property.
Well, that brings up another question, and that has to do with insurance. If someone's working on my house and an accident occurs, who's responsible for for the damages to the house or the individual getting medical treatment.
Well, that goes back to the fact that the contractor definitely needs to be asked for proof of licenses, insurance, and bonding. And if they can't find those items or can't produce it for you, really question whether they're fit to do the job. You want to make sure that that you have your ducks in a row in terms of your own insurance for your home, and they need to have their ducks in a row in terms of their licenses, insurance, and bonding to make sure that both sides are covered in case something does go bad. Let's just scroll down to some of the other information on this on the website. As we scroll down, it says don't enter into a home improvement deal unless it is in writing and it's signed both by you and the contractor. Now, that contract is very important. I would never take any promises somebody tells you for granted unless it's written down somewhere. So you want everything in writing. And I think the bigger the job, the more important it is to put every little piece down in writing, including when the work is supposed to be done. A lot of folks get strung along by scammers or by folks that are less than reputable, saying they're going to do the job in a week. Oh, we'll do it in another week. We'll do it when the weather changes, things like that. You want to make sure that you get a complete description of the work to be done, the time frame, and the materials to be used before they start the job. And you want to make sure that both sides, you and the contractor, sign off on all the important details. You want a copy of everything in writing, signed off by you and signed off by the contractor. You want a provision requiring written approval for any changes. So when you were mentioning that cut rate roofing job, somebody that might be able to do a $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000 job for $2,000 or $3,000, well, are they going to stay halfway through the job? Whoops, we miscalculated and we're going to need to raise the price of the job. And then, when all is said and done, they may bring that price up to where the other estimates were before they started doing work. And the worst thing is, and I think we've all had this happen where, or we've seen on some home improvement shows where something's undiscovered about what the job entails. Whoops, we didn't realize that wall is held up by some type of equipment or some kind of metal piece, and we need to replace all of that. So no matter what, you want to make sure that you go into it knowing that your written approval will be required for any changes.
There's a home improvement show that has two brothers on there. And when you watch the show, halfway through, all of a sudden, exactly what happens. Oops, we didn't see this. And so the price is going to be changed. So I can see your point as to doing some things that we think is okay until we start doing the work.
Yeah.
And should it be the responsibility of the contractor? Or, when a contractor comes in and says, well, it's going to cost you $15,000 to move this room over there. And then when they find that there's something wrong, do they have a right to come along and change the price?
Well, that depends. I can't really give legal advice because I'm an educator with the office, but when they come at you with something, it can put you in a very difficult position because they may be half done with the job. So do you want them to walk away and leave a half done job? You feel a lot of pressure. Please don't feel pressure to sign off on changes or increased estimates. But make sure you discover with them any unknowns. Remember, things are negotiable. You have the rights guaranteed to you under the contract and under Ohio law. And you're going to want to know and put in that contract the total cost of the work and the specific terms for the payment of materials and labor. You also want a provision that doesn't require you to pay attorney's fees or court costs or damages in case there is some type of dispute or a contest of what's been done. And you want a requirement for the contractor to obtain all the necessary permits and inspections. In fact, that's one way some inspector or some contractors can cut corners and start work right away, is if they're not getting permits, if they're not getting inspections. So be careful and don't skirt anything. You want it done, and you want it done right. You want it done on time. So also, another red flag that we have to know about is how much is that down payment. If they want payment in full or a large down payment, that's a red flag. They should not be asking for all money down. Usually we say that maybe 20 or 30% might be appropriate as the maximum down payment. If it's a big job, maybe save some payment for the middle of the job when they've done the work satisfactorily. And save as much money for possible till the very end. You want to keep control of the purse strings, and you want to make sure they're going to do the job and do it right before you hand over the majority of your money. A lot of the scammers' tactics are going to involve getting that large down payment, starting work right away, and putting pressure on you not to get any other estimates.
When you do pay individuals a certain amount of money, I'm assuming then that as time goes on, you shouldn't wait until the very end to pay them. Maybe if it's a long project, maybe a second payment.
Sure.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a second payment's warranted in between the down payment and the final bill, if it's a big job, because that means that at least they're halfway done, the work's being done well. You can pay them that extra some percentage amount, but certainly wait till the total work is done before you hand over the rest of that money. So maybe put it in thirds, a third down, a third in the middle of the job, and a third at the very, very end. The more money you leave for the end is in your favor. So we want to do what's best for consumers. So if you're not happy with the job and they're not willing to give you a refund, and you have to start going to the Ohio Attorney General's office or the Better Business Bureau or suing them in small claims court, if it comes to those types of unfortunate possibilities, you're going to want to get your money back, but you're not going to, the less you've paid them, the more benefit you have of not having sacrificed that money yet.
So let's suppose I have someone fixing my porch roof, and everything seems to be going well. I paid a small down payment. When it was done, it looked good. Didn't have any problem. 2 months later, all of a sudden, there's a major leak. What is my recourse then?
Well, it really depends on what's in the contract, and it depends what you've agreed on for that job. I mean, there could be some type of warranty that they've given you in terms of the labor costs. Some contractors may tell you that the parts are under warranty and that if they're faulty, you can replace them, but then still charge you labor for the installation of the new parts. So it really depends. And it's up to the consumer to do that research beforehand so they're not surprised down the road. So those are exactly the kind of questions that you got to ask the contractor before you sign on the line and hand over your personal information and your money. Is, what happens if something does happen that's wrong? There are contractors out there that'll give you a lifetime warranty. And some people joke and say, well, my lifetime or the lifetime of their business. There might be different answers to what a lifetime warranty is. But in all seriousness, you want everything written down. You don't want anything unexpected. And if something does unexpectedly occur, that's when you need to ask questions, try to negotiate, work with the contractor one-on-one. And if you can't come to a resolution, You could try coming to the Ohio Attorney General's office for informal dispute resolution. That's something we literally do every day with consumers to try to help resolve their complaint, is informal dispute resolution when they've already tried but not been able to work something out with the contractor for that job. And a lot of the complaints we do get involve home improvement, home repair. It's not quite the top category, which is motor vehicles, but it's certainly up there in terms of the kinds of complaints and the amount of money involved when people do have a gripe and they do feel like they've been wronged.
So let's suppose that I have a claim against the individual. Let's suppose my roof did start leaking. All I have to do then is contact you and you'll get my money back?
Well, it depends on the facts. I mean, we definitely would like you to get your money back, but it's hard to tell who's right and who's wrong. If it's a really a he said, she said situation, that really could only be determined by a court. We will try to let the business know your side of the story, and we certainly would encourage the business to listen to your side of the story. But there's no guarantees that you're going to get money back without having to take them to court. The informal dispute resolution process works very well for legitimate contractors and consumers that simply are butting heads and they won't listen to each other, and the contractor may think he's right and the consumer may think that he or she is right, but it's not perfect. So be careful at the front end. Be careful with who you do business with. Ask questions, get multiple estimates. All the research you do up front is going to be worth it for the fact that if you choose the right contractor and pay the right price for the job, it may be a smooth sailing approach that works for you and for them.
I noticed that in smaller rural communities, there are not as many contractors or individuals that can do the kinds of things we want them to do. And sometimes, it's easy to get 3 bids, but maybe there's only one available.
Yeah, and that's where you have to start looking outside the box a little bit, get referrals from friends and family that may live in neighboring communities. See if it's worth it to have someone come, even if they're from out of town or a nearby town. Maybe they wouldn't mind going into your neck of the woods just to at least give you an estimate on a price. And don't feel like you need to stay with just those that advertise or just those in your community or just those that maybe on the internet. You want to make sure to get recommendations from friends and family. Go into search engines and put names of the companies in the search engine along with words like complaint or scam, and find out the reputation. Now, you can't believe everything you see and read online. We all know that. But if somebody has a bunch of complaints against them of consumers saying the same thing, that they've been left high and dry, that they paid money and they didn't get any services, that's where you get into red flags and a sure bet that you might be asking for trouble if you go with that kind of a contractor.
So I can find all this information on your website.
Absolutely, and it's in the April edition of Consumer Advocate. So you just want to go to ohioprotects.org, or you can certainly go to ohioattorneygeneral.gov and get some general information about everything we've talked about on this show. If you do have a complaint, or if you can't find what you're looking for, if you need to ask the Attorney General's office a question, our toll-free number for all of our consumers is 800-282-0515. That's 800-282-0515, or simply go to ohioprotects.org. You can file complaints that way. You can find out tips that way, and lots of good information is literally at your fingertips that way.
So Ryan, the state of Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost is very interested in helping all of us be safe from scams and things of that nature. Are you one of the few that work in the state of Ohio Attorney General's office?
We have about 50 to 60 people in the consumer protection section, but office-wide, we have about 1,500 employees at the Ohio Attorney General's office because our office includes more than 30 sections. A lot of people don't know that some of them are law enforcement related, like our friends and colleagues over at the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and Identification. So we have a long list of employees. I wish they all worked for Consumer Protection Section, but we have about 50 or 60 employees that work in our section, just doing consumer work.
So we can safely say that if I submit a complaint or a concern that I have, that it won't sit on somebody's desks for weeks and weeks and weeks.
One of the big issues we have with some contractors is delays. And it's hard enough for a consumer to try to get at a contractor. Once in a while, we need to send multiple letters, make multiple phone calls, send emails till we get a contractor to respond. Now, some are very timely and do it the right way and at least respond to complaints in a timely manner. Others are more difficult to chase down. And I think you can appreciate the fact that they're doing hard work and they're doing lots of different jobs, maybe even at the same time. But if you want someone to respond quickly, choose someone that's reputable to begin with. Choose somebody that gets a good grade from the Better Business Bureau. Choose somebody that hasn't been sued by the Ohio Attorney General's office for the kind of work you want them to do.
Do you give online classes or discussions, meetings? Do you go to places to talk with groups?
Sure, we do offer presentations on issues like shopping smart and identity theft and consumer scams and cybersecurity. We are a phone call away or a website request away from coming to your club or your organization, www.ohioprotects.org or 800-282-0515. Let them know that you want a consumer presentation. That'll make them aware that you want to contact our section and have one of our 3 educators go out to your area and give a presentation. Now, we do it virtually as well for smaller groups. We do require a minimum of 20 attendees if we go in person, simply because of the travel required and the expense of that. But if you have a smaller group, or even if you have a bigger group and you want a virtual presentation, we can definitely help you out with those requests.
We're talking with Ryan Lippe. Ryan Lippe is a consumer educator with the State of Ohio Attorney General's office, Dave Yost. Ryan, thank you. Very informative meeting.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time, and we hope to address some of consumers' concerns in the future. Just give us a call or let us know online. We are here to help.